Hi Flosstube, this is Nitya, and you're at my Flosstube channel, Daybreak Stitchery, and here we are at the end of May. It's been a month full of stitching for me, so I have so many things to show you. So as usual, we're just going to get into it. I have 3 finishes. I have a few whips, and then I have 7 new starts. I'm still on a no new haul kick, and then I'm going to share some for those of us who are kind of socially conscious stitchers. I have some ideas for stitching for Palestine and stitching for Pride Month. So we have tons to talk about. So, oh, and have you noticed? Well, I don't have much in terms of my surroundings for my videos anyway, but you're going to notice lots of wall space. So all that wall envy I've been getting from watching everybody's Flosstube videos, now I have plenty of space. We moved this month, so now we're in the new digs. And I haven't put anything up yet, but plenty of plans to put stuff up. So it's just nice to have wall space to plan for. Okay, shall we start with some finishes? Because I have 3 to show you from this month. So the first one is Henna Mandala by Ink Circles. And this is one of the patterns that's like 115 by 115. It's a square, and I love it. I started it for Stitch Asia, and it only took me, I think I must have started in March maybe, and then I finished early this month. And I'm using, this is 18 count dill by Pictures Plus, and I'm using 2 strands. Did I use 2 strands? 2 strands of PR068 by Silks for You. That was the one that I had talked about in my last video that kind of transitions from black to red. It's like a black cherry, because even the black part, let me hold it up close so you can see it. Even the darkest parts have a little bit of red mixed in. So I'm so happy with this. And I'm thinking of framing it. I probably won't frame it right away because I don't have a frame and I'm trying not to purchase stuff. But I'd like to frame it in like a dark gray frame. And I think I have acrylic paint that's that color. So I'll probably just get a thrift store frame or see if I have one, and then paint it that color just to add a little contrast. But so super happy with this finish. And let me tell you, it was so uneventful, the finish of it, because I got down to this bottom corner and I had 1 stitch left and I ran out of thread. So I rethreaded, stitched the last stitch. Then I said, ooh, I love it. And I took a picture and then I put it aside and I started another Ink Circles pattern. So, but I do really love it. And I'm so happy with how it turned out. And that I have so much of that PR068 left now because I had a whole hank of it. So I do have an idea for something to do with it that I will share later. So that's my first finish of the month. It came really early. Actually, it was technically probably even still April. I have to look at my notes, but I finished that one super early this month. Okay, my second finish, this is also one I'm super happy with. It looks like this. And this is the Quaker wreath that I started last month by Stone Street Stitchworks. And I just love it so much. Isn't it so happy and bright? I'm going to hold it up closer too so you can see. So this is on 30 count pink clay linen by Access Commodities. Both of these, the dill from Henna Mandala and then the pink clay linen, they were both clearance fabrics from 123 Stitch. If you've been watching me, you know I love picking up their clearance items. And the threads were all from, I think last month's Thread of the Month Club from Color and Cotton, who I just love Color and Cotton. I just got the shipping notification that the next ones are coming. So I had been wanting to do this pattern for a long time, but I hadn't decided on colors. And then when the Thread Club threads came, I just thought, oh, they look so pretty together, so let me try it. So I want to show you what colors I used. So that center motif there, like the tulipy looking flower, that's with jasmine. I don't know you'll be able to see it with my light, but it's like a purple, like a plum purple, very pretty color. And then the smallest wreath ring around that flower motif is with Flamingo. I love this color. It's, you're not gonna be able to see it very well. It's like a pink, like a light coral pink, and it's so pretty. You're sticking up. And then what happened is I got a little nervous. So I did the center motif, and then I did the pink ring around it, right? You can see it here, this pink ring. And then I got a little nervous that I would run out of thread, because the, when you get thread of the club of the month, it's just one skein of each color. These are I'll show you the other ones. The orange is Tiger Lily. The kind of pinky color next to the orange is Kris Kringle. It's like a very pinky red sort of color. And then on the very outer ring, I used a little more of the jasmine along with Silver Lining and Nightshade, which is also pretty. All the purples are very pretty. So then what I had to do, because I was nervous I was going to run out, so I started alternating colors in this, starting with this middle ring of the wreath, just to be sure I wouldn't run out, because I would have hated to, like, I started from here and kind of worked around on either side, and I was worried I would get to down here and then just have to like cut it off or something, which might have been okay, but then it wouldn't have been a wreath anymore, and I like how round it is. So then I did the same thing, because these, can you see how they're like little parallelograms? These like little geometric shapes that make up the motif. So they get slightly larger with each ring. So like here they're tiny, tiny, then they get a little bit larger, then they get a little bit larger. So they were using up more thread. And this is a 30 count, so I was stitching with 3 strands over 2. So I was using up a lot of thread. But I like how it looks, because I'm going to show you a little bit closer. It creates this kind of like carpet, like a tapestry feel. It's really thick, almost like a rug. I love that finish. So I had to use, I couldn't use on 28 and 30 count. I don't think I could use 2 strands. It's just, it doesn't cover it up enough for me. So super happy with this one. I have no idea how to finish this one. Oh, thank you to Minnie and Sarah from Modcross. You're sticking up. For recommending Vanna Pfeiffer's channel for Flosstube, because I had mentioned in my last video that I wanted to look into finishes, like just ways to finish projects. And her channel is awesome. Like, I really liked just all the little tips she gave. So for example, in one video, she talked about how when you frame a project, it's really good to get right up close to the edge of your stitching, because then it draws your eyes directly to the stitching. Whereas if you leave a lot of like fabric around, like if I were to frame around here, your eyes would be kind of confused about where to look, whether to look at the frame or whether to look at the stitched piece. So I like that. She's just got like interesting tips. And guess who found a quilting mat, like with ruler measuring and everything on it while moving? I had one behind like my craft storage. So I didn't even know I had that. So I have a space, and it comes with like a rotary cutter. Now I just need to get fabric. So maybe I'll try doing some kind of interesting finish with this. I was watching Matt, I think he's MBC Stitcher, and he finishes his with, I think he rolls his fabric over canvas, and then he puts that directly on the wall, like without a frame or anything. I kind of like that. Just hanging up a canvas of a fabric project. And I had asked him if it gets dusty and if it's hard to dust, and he said it hasn't been a problem. So that's an idea. I'm just not sure yet what I'm going to do, but I'm excited to put this one up. So this was Stone Street Stitchworks, and it's Quaker Wreath. They have a lot of really great patterns. Did everyone see, I've been watching a lot of Julie, Kansas City Girl in a Colorado World, and her latest video just came out like in the past few days. She was talking about patriotic stitching, and, just the idea that like when you stitch something patriotic, you're not sure what idea of patriotism it stands for. And, yeah, I think she's got some interesting things to say about that. And she did a patriotic piece, but stitched a Martin Luther King quote on it, Martin Luther King Jr. quote. So I love, that is totally in line with what I do, because I love like changing or modernizing pieces to reflect like who we are today. I bring that up because Stone Street Stitchworks actually has some really cute patriotic patterns. And normally when I see patriotic patterns, I'm not really drawn to, like stitching flags or things like that. But there are actually some very pretty ones. It's Selma from Stone Street Stitchworks. It's worth checking out. And then I love that idea of like stitching a quote. Reflecting a different voice, and a different vision than something super traditional. Okay, I've got one more finish to show you. And this is a finish that I shamed myself into doing. And I'll show you why. Well, I'll show it to you first. If I can. I folded the fabric the wrong way, so. Isn't it cute? This is the long-eared owl. And it's by Owl Forest Embroidery. And it's from the 100 Owls, which is, I wrote it down. Stosov. Stosov is how you say 100 owls in Russian. Stosov. And this comes from a sampler. It's like, everyone knows that Owl Forest is doing that free sampler right now with Alice in Wonderland. So the one before that, the free pattern before Alice in Wonderland, was that 100 Owls. Stosov. And long story short, I have an Owl Forest pattern that I want to get. And it's called Spring Alphabet, and it's beautiful. And it has, you can get two versions of it. You can get either the Cyrillic alphabet, and then it has this beautiful flower wreath with birds in the middle, beautiful like blues and purples and some teal, like gorgeous colors. You can also get like the English alphabet, the Latin-based alphabet, if you want to stitch that one. And I saw someone on Instagram who had finished it, and I thought, whoa, I thought I knew all of the Owl Forest patterns. I hadn't seen that one. But then I realized when moving that I have like 8 Owl Forest patterns, and I had started one maybe. So I said, you need to get yourself together and actually stitch some of these before you even think of buying something new. So I pulled out this one. I had ordered the threads that go with this. So Owl Forest dyes their own threads. They're variegated threads. They're super beautiful. And let me see if I can show you, like if I zoom in real close, my video quality is terrible. Like for example, if you look at this plant right here, like the stalk and the leaves are all one thread. So like the beiges and the greens, those are all in one thread. Do I have any to show? I haven't pulled them out to show you, but I would recommend, like even if you're not into their patterns, I would recommend getting their thread. Like try kitting up a project that's not Owl Forest, but with their threads, because they're super beautiful. So I didn't want to do the whole sampler. Like, look at the size of this. This is on 28 count linen. And this is just, I do have a picture of this, I think. So this is part of it. This is one of the installments that isn't finished that I had downloaded, but this is the motif right here that I had done, this owl in the center. Look at how big the rest of it is. It's enormous. And so this would have been really huge. And I just didn't have it in me to stitch a whole sampler of it. I'm trying to finish things. And when packing up for moving, I just found so many of my stash fabrics are small. I don't know why I bought so many small ones, but they just are. So now I'm trying to find smaller items to stitch on. So that's what I went with. I chose the motif that my eyes are always drawn to when I look at that pattern. So that's kind of what I went with. And I'm using the called for thread. So I have a lot of thread left over. So another idea I'm playing around with is taking, so like I've done this one, right? So now I could there's a little border here, a mini border. And then there are some cute little guys. There's a guy here, this little owl that has like almost like a crown around it. It's really beautiful. So I'm thinking of using another one of my tiny fabrics and just making my own mini sampler because I have a lot of the threads left. I got the called for threads for the whole sampler. So that's an idea. So I'm really happy with how this turned out. And this was a real quick and easy, like just probably over a week, stitching on it in the evenings. It came together quickly. I changed one little part of it, which was in his face. See how it's all filled in? In the pattern, there's parts of it that are open, but because I put it on a green fabric, I didn't want green on his face, so I just filled it in. So that was the only change I made. Otherwise, I stitched it with everything called for and just as the pattern indicates. And, this linen is a 28 count Permin stiff linen. And it came in a pack that I got from XJU Designs, the shop on Etsy. And it was a really cool pack because it was 9 pieces of this size, 9-inch by 11-inch. And each one was a different color. Each of the 9 fabrics in the pack, it was the same fabric, Permin linen, but each one was dyed with a different color. So I have a pack now with really cool colors. Like this green was in there. There was a pretty blue, like several reddish oranges, several kind of brown naturals, and then like a cream colored one. So it covers everything. There's a little bit of everything. So that was a good find. And I'm stitching over 2. I'm using 3 strands again. See that nice carpeted look that I love to go for? So I think I would stitch more on 28 and 30 count. I like the look of it. It just creates such big patterns though. That I'm not sure about that, but anyway. So this was the long-eared owl. Each owl has a name because they're actually based on like actual owls in the world. And so this was the long-eared owl, and it was the 100 Owls sampler. You know who's got a really beautiful one? Actually, who inspired me to use green for this? It's Amy from Amy Loves Toads. She finished her sampler, I think, like a while ago, and she used a beautiful green fabric and she stitched the entire sampler. It's stunning. It's really, really beautiful. Sometimes you see, like, you think you have to use natural neutral tones, but then you see other people being creative with colors. You're like, oh yeah, maybe I could try that too. Okay, so those were my 3 finishes. Weren't they exciting? I can't wait to do something with them now, like put them up. Okay, so I have 3 works in progress, 3 whips to show you. And 2 of them were based on my goals for WhipGo. And then the other one was, I just felt like restarting it, so I did. So the first one was Dreaming Girl. So this is my Dreaming Girl by Barbara Anna. This was a stitch along like in February or March. It had 5 pieces, I think, 5 installments. And I think now you can just buy the pattern whole. But I'll show you up closer too. She's coming along great. She's kind of loosely based on me. All I did was I played with skin color, and I've talked about that a lot in my older videos. The WhipGo goal was to stitch 3 motifs on it, so it was not a very ambitious goal, but I can show you what I did. I stitched the lighthouse, and then the sun, and then that boat, and then I added like the that sky, the trees and the stars, the clouds, and I got her wisp of hair all the way down here, and like one of the little blue fish in her hair. So this is a seasonal piece. So like down here is supposed to represent spring. So there are some flowers that will come in here. Up here, it starts to go into summer. In her hair, she's got these leaves in her hair. So that's fall. And then down here, the bit I haven't done yet. Down here is going to be winter. There are like some of these buildings that are up here. They get repeated down in the bottom corner. But they have snow on them. So it's coming along great. This is on 18 count Herald by Picture This Plus. I love this fabric. I love this color. It's like kind of a turquoisey blue-green, but then the mottled bits are blue. Very, very pretty. I would choose this anytime and start something else. And I feel like all the colors pop really well on there too. So that was Dreaming Girl, Barbara Anna. I feel like I'm getting real close to a finish on this. Like maybe this could be one of my next things I finish. You can see that I'm avoiding the hair in the middle because I didn't like my color. Oh, now you can kind of see it. I chose brown for the top part of her hair, the top part of the wisper of her hair. And then the part underneath is black, but they just look so similar when you're stitching them that I've been kind of avoiding that part. But now in this light, you can kind of see the difference. So maybe I can work, maybe this could be a June finish. I have so much stitching time coming because we ended school. I'm a high school teacher and yesterday was our last day of school. So now I have tons of time this summer. I'm going to do some planning, but usually I give myself June to take a break. And then, July, I'll start planning for the new year. So this June feels like an ideal month to try to finish a few more things. Okay. So I have another whip that was also a whip go goal. This is the first whip go goal that I haven't finished in the same month that it was called. I started it, and I know when I watch Sunshine Stitchers, they're always reminding about how when you start a whip go goal, so it's work in progress bingo, right? So everybody people who are involved set up a bingo board, and it's just a way to get you to skip around and try reaching goals on different projects. So I know that Sunshine Stitchers are always talking about how you have the whole year to finish the goal, but up to this point, I've been finishing them each month because they're not very ambitious goals, but this one actually is. Okay, so this is my 2018 Linens and Threads. It was a mystery sampler that got released once a month in 2018. Now it's been archived to their store, so you have to buy the pattern. Usually they're free. And this is the one that's kind of fantasy themed. It's a band sampler. So my whip go goal was to finish one band, which is, it stretches a lot. This is barely a quarter of the band right here. But the band I chose is dragons. And you can kind of see, I got the wings. So let me show you what I had done last time. So I'd basically just gotten the back leg of the dragon right here. And then this iris and the border. So I've added the wings of the dragon now. And this band, I don't have a picture of it. This band has 3 dragons on it. And then a big sun with a face in there too. So and then more irises on the other end. So there's a lot going on. I think it will take me the whole year probably to finish this band. This sampler is really pretty because some of the bands have scenes this one is a dragon scene. Some of them are just borders. So it would be really pretty to do finish this band and then choose a skinny border maybe to go underneath it and then choose another motif. There's one, it's very Game of Thronesy because this has dragons. There's one that has stags on it too. And that's kind of a motif that shows up on that show. This is with, what is this on? It's an even weave. It's 32 count. It's vintage brown Lugana. Isn't the modeling on it really beautiful? Vintage brown. And the silk I'm using is silk. Oh no, it's not 6 for you. It's Mrs. Sedas. And it's Mrs. Sedas Darling Bleu. So she's got I think just a darling. I think one that's called Darling, and it's more aqua. It's very aqua toned with splotches of blue on it. And then she's got this Darling Bleu, which is way more blue. And then the splotches are in aqua. So I love it. I love this color. And I'm always the last one to get places at the Flosstube party, but I did not know that shade of Darling Bleu was named after Mika, who is Darling Bluebell on Flosstube. So one day I was stitching and I just, in YouTube, I searched for Whip Parade and then I was watching everybody's Whip Parades and hers came up and it might be one of my favorite Whip Parades. Next to Minnie. I love Minnie's All X's, her Whip Parades, but Darling Bluebell, hers is beautiful because she chooses she and I choose similar projects, a lot of kind of these ink circles patterns and those sort of geometric, lots of busy patterns. And then she tends to stitch projects that are mostly blue, all different beautiful blues. She does a lot of hades too that are really blue. And when I finished that whip parade, I said to myself, I need to see that again. So I'm watching it again sometimes, just like I watch TV shows over and over again. So I watch Flosstube. Like when I finish watching all of Sunshine Stitchers, I know I'm going to watch them again because it's just like watching a TV show that you love, you know? So I'm going to link that video with Darling Blue. You've probably all of you have probably already seen this because you know this stuff already. But I'm going to link that whip parade video below, and it's so, so beautiful. So that, I have this. So this is that color, Darling Bleu. And it's by Mrs. Sadas. Wonderful. Both Silks for You and Mrs. Sadas. I love both of them to work on. And I don't know if this is a genuine reaction that I had after stitching my henna mandala, or if I've been influenced by Dorothy of Historische Stickmuster, because she did in April, Dorothy did that video. Did everyone see? She did a whole video on silk, like the properties of silk and different kinds of silk to stitch with. And she shared an idea in there where she said she grew up looking at, like visiting museums and seeing lots of stitched items in museums. And she remembered how beautiful they were. But then when she started stitching, she was using cotton. And she said she was so disappointed at her work because it never had kind of a finished quality, or like there's something she felt like that was missing. But then when she started using silk, and the one she uses mostly is Overa Soie silk, she said that was like what she needed. The silk basically had a different finish to it that she couldn't accomplish with cotton. And I think it's so true, because I think I'm coming around to this on my own even before Dorothy said it. It just sits much flatter than DMC, that like I use mostly DMC cotton and coloring cotton too. DMC has kind of a puffy quality to it, and I feel like it doesn't sit flat enough. Silk feels like it's so smooth when it's finished, when it's done. I don't know. It definitely looks different. It has a different look to it, and I like it. So I have other items coming up too that I'm using. I have some Mrs. Sadas and some Silks for You that I had picked up over the holidays. So I'm trying to kind of like find projects to do with them now. Okay, and then I have one more work in progress, which is actually a restart, because I do that sometimes when I'm unhappy. You know, when I packed up my whips. So I have an enormous amount of projects that I started. I've been watching, I mentioned I watch Julie, Kansas City Girl in a Colorado World, and I noticed I've been watching older videos of hers. And she mentions in several, like every so often, she will rewrite her list of all her works in progress just as an exercise to like kind of filter out what she's already done and then to add new ones she started. So I did that. I made a list, not just works in progress, though. I made a list of everything I've started since last fall. Do you want to know the number? 63. I've started 63 projects. This is my 9th month of Flosstube. So, I mean, that's a lot. It's a lot. I finished 8 of them. So I'm including in that list, I included like, in my older videos, I had little smalls that I had stitched. I included those too. I included my recent finishes and all that. So I've been I just wrote them out, and then I've been putting these little boxes around the ones I finish. It is very sobering to see all of your starts in that amount of time. And I was going to get around to saying something related to that, and I don't remember. But anyway, so getting to the next thing I'm talking about. So while packing to move, it gives you a chance to look at every project you've started, right? So I had a couple where I just thought, I'm never going to come back to this. I either have to just ditch it totally or try something different. And one of them was Galliana designs. They're so beautiful. You're going to know Galliana because that's the designer for the bookcase cell that Shiloh at Cross Stitch MD started. And I started a Christmas sampler from Galliana, and it's really beautiful. I will try. I don't know if I'm going to be able to put pictures. The video editor that I've been using doesn't allow me to do much. It's very limited, but if I can, I'll try to throw in a picture. But I had done it, or I had started it on a blue fabric, and I had been using hand-dyed threads by Amaranth and Stitch, which were really beautiful. But I realized that I don't have enough to, I don't know why I started in that, because I barely have enough to do like a quarter of that project. And I would run out of threads, and then those are hand-dyed and they can't guarantee, matching in each. So I just thought, I think having that idea that I'm not going to be able to finish it is keeping me from even proceeding on it. So I just went ahead and restarted it. And I have this 32 count platinum Lugana. It's 32 count, so it's even weave. And I'm so much happier with this. Do you see the colors on it? So I'm using DMC threads, and I have to show you something that I didn't choose this. Well, I did choose this color palette myself, but it's heavily influenced by someone who I saw on Instagram, and I'm going to show you right now. They go by Hutch Inosuke, and they were stitching Pandemic Sampler. I'm going to see if I can hold this up and show you. Do you see these colors they were using? So it's Hutch Inosuke, and I'll put their Instagram down in the description. But they were stitching this beautiful Pandemic Sampler, and they were using like these bright greens, bright and a deeper green, and then like 2 reds, and then that gray, which is $37.99 DMC. I love that. So I thought, well, maybe I could redo Christmas Sampler with that one. I'm going to show it again. So I asked, like, would you mind sharing what colors you used? And they had used only 2 DMC. All the rest were Cosmo, which is it's cotton floss from Japan. And I'm trying not to buy new items. So I spent a good amount of time trying to color match, like looking for conversion charts between Cosmo and DMC. And it's very hard to match. There's not, like, the colors that they had used, that Hutch Inosuke had used, I could not find the exact matching tones. So what I did is I took a step back and I said, okay, the colors they used, there were definitely 2 greens, there were definitely 2 reds, and then there was like a deeper, like a grayish color. So I kept the deeper grayish color, which is this, it's in the tiny border right here, the long skinny border. That's DMC $37.99. But then I picked my own. I picked 2 greens that I liked. I threw in some aquas, and then I picked 2 kind of reddish tones. One's more of like almost a mahogany brown. The other one's kind of a plum purpley red. And I like the contrast of it, and it still feels kind of wintry, doesn't it? It feels sort of folksy wintry, rather than traditional winter colors. So I'm pretty pleased with it, with how it's turning out. I'm doing 1/1. Let me see if I can hold it up real close. I'm doing 1/1 on this platinum Lugana even weave. And this is just, excuse me, this is just basically an evening and like plus 1 hour of stitching. It's super, super fast stitching. So now I'm excited about this again. I was going to wait until, I think a lot of people stitch like Christmas in July, like they pull out Christmas stuff to stitch in July, but I couldn't wait because once I got the colors together, I just wanted to see how they would look, and I'm pretty happy with it. So I will definitely be stitching more on this. Sometimes you just got to restart and kind of refocus, and like your interests go in different places from month to month as you get inspired by more patterns and more colors. So I feel like it's just something that's got to happen, restarting once in a while. Okay, so those were my works in progress, and I think we could go to new starts because I have, as always, I have a whole bunch, and you are about to see exactly why I am trying to go 100 days without new haul. I'm on day 41. I'm on day 41 without buying any new haul. And it's because I was able to, not 7, I have 8 new starts. Is it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7? Yeah. I started 8 new projects this month. All were from my stash. 100% of them were from my stash. I'm using threads I have, fabrics I have, patterns I have. So this is exactly why I feel like I need to finish some things before I pick up anything new, even though I have a list. Let me see if I can find it. I've been writing down the items I want to get. The list is long, but I'm going to try to hold off. And also I've been changing my mind. Like I had an idea for something I wanted to get, but then I changed my mind on it. So it's been kind of a good practice for me to write it down. Don't just run and go get it, because then I can think about it before I make a decision. Okay, so new start. So one of the new starts that I had mentioned in my last video was I wanted to stitch this Where Flowers Bloom by Hands Across the Sea, but I was going to adapt it to make it a more modern project by removing this house, and instead I'm going to stitch, there's a quote on it that says, "Where flowers bloom, so does hope." So I want to remove this house and instead stitch the names of women, especially people of color, who give us hope today. So that's still the plan. So I've just barely started it. And boy, this was an interesting experiment to start. So let me show you what I've got so far. It's really pretty. I'm enjoying the colors. This is on, I'll open it up so you can see the full size of it. I really hope, I don't know why I am so terrible at calculating like the edges and borders of things. I really hope this pattern doesn't run off the edge. I don't think it will, but I don't understand. And I use the cross stitch calculator. It's not like I'm calculating it even myself. Like something else is calculating it, and I cannot, I make mistakes with getting too close to the edge all the time. It happens all the time. So I really wanted to get to the letters on the quote just to see how they would look. So this is 32 count linen, and it's light blue violet, and it's by XJU Design. That's dyed. I've been having every single fabric I have from XJU Design has been beautiful, and I love using it. All the colors are really unique and pretty. It's like a pale purpley blue. I don't know if that will come out. And the silks, let me tell you, this has been an adventure. Do I have them here? It's Overa Soie. It's Overa Soie 103. I'm using the called for silks. These have been sitting in my stash for quite some time, so I'm kind of glad I'm getting around to it. This is what it looks like. It comes on a spool like this. So this silk, I should know more about it because I watched that video by Dorothy, but I don't remember now. It's a different kind of silk than the silk from Silks For You or Mrs. Sada's, because that silk has a very soft quality to it. It sits really flat, and it's not slippery. I mean, it glides through fabric when you pull through fabric, like pull the needle up, but it's not, it's not slick and slippery. This is very slick and slippery. Like if I thread a needle with one strand of this and I just leave the needle, like if I'm holding the needle and I shake it a little, it would probably just slide out. The thread could just slide out. So it doesn't sit very firmly. Like see if I don't know if I can see it. Like if I hold it like this, it doesn't really keep its shape. Like it doesn't keep its shape. It comes back loose. And I'm stitching on 32 count, and you know what that means for me? I need multiple strands. So I have been cutting, everyone's going to tell me this is a terrible use of this silk because it's a little bit more expensive too. I've been cutting 3 same size strands from the same spool, putting them together, threading it through the needle, and then stitching with that. So I'm going to show you again what it looks like. I'll hold it up real close. So it's these really, really thick stitches like I like. And they have that same, remember how I was talking about silk just has a different finished quality? It lays super flat. It's got a nice sheen to it. So it lays in the same way that Mrs. Sada's and Silks For You does, but it stitches really differently. It's I wouldn't say it's a hassle to stitch with, but it's definitely getting there. Because now you've got 3 strands of that Overa Soie silk on your needle. They're all slipping around. By the time I get to the last stitch, they're all uneven. Like when I'm cutting the leftover, like when I'm done and I've tucked in my stitch and I'm cutting the leftover, like one strand is super long and one super short. It's a little messy to stitch with. I think most people stitch just 1/1 on this. But I didn't want to do 1/1. I wanted to show it's pretty. It's really pretty. And the color palette that goes with this project is really pretty. So I didn't want to do tiny stitches with it. I wanted to really showcase the thread. So that's what I'm doing on it. So it's, yeah, it's coming along. I hope to do a little bit more on this kind of chip away at it each month. I have to do quite a few motifs before I can get down to the names. So I haven't even looked into like what fonts I think I'm gonna have to use a very small font. And I've bought some small fonts before for my the Hill We Climb piece that I'm doing. So I think I'll be able to work in those names. I just haven't worked on layout or anything yet because I'm gonna stitch everything around it first. And then see, how that turns out. So that was Where Flowers Bloom by Hands Across the Sea. Okay, so next new start is ink circles. This is the one that I picked up like basically immediately after finishing Henna Mandala. Henna Mandala, by the way, I don't know if I mentioned that I started that one for Stitch Asia. I think I did. So a couple of the new starts from this month are patterns that I picked up in March from Expo, Needlework Expo. It's like the new patterns that go on sale to local needlework shops. And so this is when I picked up Blue Velvet. And I'll show you what it looks like so far. It's working up super quick. Some of you have seen this because I've been putting it on my Instagram account. So it looks like that. And I'm using this blue, which I've used in other items. I've stitched a couple of smalls with this blue before. This is, I have to look up what color silk this is. It's a Silks for You. And it's PR075. PR075. So it looks like this. It is very lightly variegated. You're not going to, maybe if I hold it back, you can see it a little bit. It's like a muted blue and a brighter, shinier blue. But it's the same blue. It's just two different kind of tones of it. And this is stitching up quicker because it's smaller than the usual, like Ink Circles does the square patterns that are like 115 by 115. This is, I want to say it's like 93 by 93. So it's much smaller. So it stitches up super quick. I only picked this up like three evenings this month, basically. So this, I'm thinking this could be finished in June. If I'm looking to finish more, this is a realistic one. I could actually finish. This is on 18 count Barnwood by Picture This Plus. I love this color. I wanted to go with a brighter color because the fabric is so muted. You know, it's like a neutral tone. It's dark and it's muted. So I thought, let me just see how a brighter thread stands up to it. And it does. It looks beautiful. I love it. So this has been a good one to stitch. This pattern is so easy to follow. Like with Henna Mandala, there were lots of intricate details on it where I had to make a copy of the pattern and then highlight. Like I don't use Pattern Keeper because I do not have a device that can use it. So where it can fit on it. I have a very cheap phone, so I can barely put any apps on it. So I just do the old school, I make a copy and then I use a highlighter and highlight stitches as I stitch them. So I had to do that for Henna Mandala, but I don't have to do it for this one. It's much easier to stitch on without having to like keep track of the stitches with anything. So I love it. I love this Barnwood too. Picture This Plus. Just loving their fabrics. I know there's a shortage of them now. I think a lot of them seem to be sold out on 1-2-3 Stitch. Not like I'm going to be buying anytime soon anyway. But they're just nice fabrics to stitch on. Okay, my third new start. I'm going to show it to you and then I'm going to tell you what it is. Looks like that. This is a modern folk embroidery pattern. And it is called Thistlebirds. And it comes from volume 32 of Stitch Ide. And I talked about this magazine a little bit in my last video, but I'll show you the pattern. Jacob has a few patterns coming out in this magazine series. It's a Japanese magazine. And so this is what Thistlebirds looks like. And there's like a whole little article on Jacob from Modern Folk Embroidery. So I started this one. So I've done like the middle. I've started this middle motif and then I've worked one of the thistle plants out to the corner and then now I'm starting the top. So it looks like this. Hold it up straight. There we go. So I am using, this is another Silks for You that I had from the holidays, PR 146. and it's a purple. It's, I don't know if you'll see, yeah, do you kind of see how it's two different purples? It's like a brighter kind of bluish purple and then a darker, deep purple. And then I'm using limited edition teal by Color and Cotton. I have a whole bunch of skeins of that I had bought on sale, and I just throw them into all my projects. It's a color I really like. So I'm really happy. Sorry about that. So I can show you from back here. So see how it's like this enormous fold out. So it has a whole bunch of, it's like patterns from throughout the magazine. And then Thistlebirds is right here. So I'm working on that. So I don't want to show it close up because I don't want to give away parts of the pattern. I'll show you a little bit of that silk too. I'll show you the whole hank. When I get a silk hank, I unroll it so that it's one big circle, and then I cut it into like 3 or 4 chunks, and then I just have those chunks in my bag. So see how some of it is super bright and some of it is very, very muted and dark. So that's what's happening there. So I'm enjoying this one. I'm using, let me try to figure out what everything is. Okay, so this is 30, I think this is 36 count. Mellow is the color. This is one of the discontinued colors from Picture This Plus. It's like a yellowy, cloudy, yellow and white clouds kind of. And I'm using 3 strands. 3 strands over 2 to stitch it. Happy with it. I will definitely chip away at this one. It's not, so like this is the center. Where is it? This is the center. And it goes out to here. So this is basically a quarter. Like if I can do this part, that's a quarter of it. And then it'll stretch down. Once again, not sure if I'm going to have enough at the bottom. Did I leave too much space at the top? Not enough at the bottom? Maybe so. But it'll go down to the bottom there. So that was called Thistlebirds. Thistlebirds by Modern Folk Embroidery. Okay, 4th new start. It was also a pattern that I had picked up during Expo, and it's by Keslyn's, and it's called Cross Stitch Fun. And actually, let me show you the pattern first. It's crazy. It's really big. Looks like that. And it's got all kinds of crazy motifs in there. All sorts of fun. It's kind of fun. Different looking birds, different trees. There's a cat down there. Hearts. There's a rooster. Like a pear. A shell. All different. All sorts. But there's a bicycle. There's a bicycle down there. So I'm just barely at the top of it. Like this the border on it is really beautiful. I don't know if you're seeing that. It has like kind of these curlicues that goes all around. It's a thick border. So I'm in this middle motif of the border right here. That part. And it looks like this. So it's just basically one side. Like this is the center of that motif. So this part that's curling out here is going to go off to this side too. And then I've stitched one of the motifs, which is a heart, because it was easy. And I like the colors that I'm using, but I'm kind of regretting getting them because I think I'm not going to have enough, and I think they're going to be expensive because I'm using Gentle Art threads. And this one is really pretty. It's called Fisherman's Wharf, and it's a variegated gray and brown. And if you're looking for an inexpensive, like what I should have done is there's a DMC color variations. It's 4,000. That's basically just like this. It's just the variegation is a little bit more delicate here. So you're seeing more shades of gray and brown, whereas in the color variations one, it kind of transitions pretty straightforward from gray to brown. So there's not much in between. But it would have been way more affordable because now I've got this enormous border to do. And I have 4 skeins of the Gentle Art, but I'm pretty sure, am I using 3 strands again? I just use so much thread when I stitch. So I'm going to have to get more, I think. But I chose for the motifs, I chose also Gentle Art threads, and I chose different shades of browns and grays for that. So this is a dark brown. I think it's called Brown Bear, maybe. this first motif that I did. So each one will be in different solid colors, and then the border will be in this variegated gray brown. I'm really liking this one. I think it's very pretty. It's a pretty pattern. I can't wait to see how that border turns out. I'd like to stitch more of that border and see how far it gets. It's on 36 count flax linen. Stitching 3/2 on that one. It'll be pretty. I'd like to, when I get this motif, I've been terrible about putting up pictures on Instagram. I will do better with that this month because I'll have more time to stitch and everything. So I'll put updates once I finish the center motif of the border. I'll put an update on my Instagram page. So that was, again, I'll show you once more, Keslyn's cross stitch fun. It is going to be fun. Each motif of this is going to be really fun to stitch, I think, just because it's so busy. They have a different colorway on the back. They show one where they've stitched some of the motifs in brighter colors. Like that pear. Can you see that pear? That's the pear I was talking about. It's in a different color. And like the rooster, they stitched in actual rooster colors. The tree, they made in a green. So that's kind of pretty too. Okay, next one. Remember how I told you I shamed myself into starting all my owl forest patterns? So I have 2 that I started. So this one, I don't have a picture for this one. But it is Southern Land. You've surely seen this one on Instagram because lots of people are doing this. Shiloh from Cross Stitch MD is doing this one, and a whole bunch, like lots of people are doing this one. But I just, believe it or not, this was just one night of stitching on it. I wanted to see, once again, getting too close with borders. I wanted to start in the center and see if I could make it to the edge and see what I have left. So I'm a little worried about this. I got to work out this side now and make sure it'll get to the edge. It's very pretty, isn't it? I'm using the called for owl forest threads. Like, look at the variegation on these berries. That's one thread. See how it gets lighter pink and then darker? So I'm using their called for threads. It's all red and blue. It's all this red and blue. There's like a dark red. Let me see if I can point it out. Like this motif here is a deeper variegated red. And then there's more of like a coral variegated red. And then this blue variegated like cloudy blue. And this is on 25 count Stormy Night. Yeah, this is a fabric that's dyed only on one side. So like this side doesn't have color, but this side does. So you will be very proud of me, everyone, because guess what I'm doing on this? I'm stitching with just one thread, one strand, 1/1. And I'll tell you what, I'm happy with it. I mean, there are little parts where I'm seeing fabric come through, but I can live with it. And I wanted to do it this way because I had told you in my last video that I picked up a couple of Haid patterns, and I won't be able to start them right away because I don't have the materials for them. I have only the patterns, and I'm holding off on purchasing. So I wanted to see, because a lot of those Haid, like both of those Haids that I picked up, called for 1/1 on 25 count. So I just wanted to see what that would look like. And it's actually pretty comfortable to stitch on. So originally I'd been thinking that for Haids, because the stitches are so packed in, because it's full coverage, that I would need to choose maybe an 18 count. That's been one of the more comfortable fabrics that I've been stitching on. But now I could see myself, this 1/1 on 25 count is pretty, it was comfortable to stitch with. So now I see there's plenty of room to do filled in stitches with just one strand. It doesn't feel like you're fighting with pulling the thread through. So, what was this? Owl Forest Southern Land was this one. This will be nice to stitch. I'm loving this fabric. You see the variegation on it, or the modeling? It's going to be pretty. It's called Stormy Night, and it does kind of look like stormy clouds, doesn't it? I actually do have a 25 count Stormy Night in my stash that would fit the mini Haid that I have, but I don't have the threads. I don't have the DMC threads for it. Or I have a lot of DMC threads in my stash, but I just haven't looked to see if I have the right ones. So I'm just kind of holding off on starting those Haids. Okay, another Owl Forest that I started. This one is called Autumn Still Life. The word for still life in Russian is nature morte, which is the same thing in French. It's like dead nature. I thought that was kind of interesting. Russian has a lot of words that are borrowed from French. You won't be able to tell much of what's going on. Oh, I do have a picture of this one. It's going to look like this. Nice fall pattern. And I can show you what I've done so far. So I started in the center for this one. And right at the top here, this is the bottom half of a sunflower. This yellow, this brown is going to be the center of the sunflower. These are the petals. So that's going to continue all the way around. Underneath that sunflower, that green motif is actually a gourd. It's the top of a gourd. I just haven't finished the bottom of it. And this is where, so I'm using the owl forest threads for this. And do you see how you can really play with the variegation on these threads? Like sometimes I don't pay attention. I just stitch, right? Like on these sunflower petals, I didn't really pay attention to what color of the variegated thread was going where. But on the gourd, I intentionally started the top, like I did it in sections. So I did this part, then this part, then that part, each with different like rethreading in between, because I started with the light parts on top and then I worked down to the darker parts so that the entire gourd is light on top and the entire bottom will be dark. And then the very tip of it. So now like to do this bottom part, I'll start with that deeper green and then work my way back down to like that pale green so that the bottom and the top will be the same color and the middle will be dark. So you have you can play around with a little bit with the colors of the called for threads with Owl Forest. I started a snail. I haven't done his shell over here. These are some like berries. You can just barely see them. And then there's a border coming in here. I think this is going to be a leaf. I can't remember. Let's look at it. So I was working down here. This is the snail down here and these berries, that border. Yeah. Next to the berries is going to be a leaf right there. So it's really pretty. I think it's going to be nice. I'm putting it on 40 count anthracite. And don't those colors just pop on that? Really like how it's looking. I'll hold it back a little bit too so you can see. So it's 40 count. I'm using probably two strands with 40 count. Let me check. Yeah, I'm using 2 strands over 2. That 40 count. I'm loving how that gourd is turning out. That's pretty cute. I got to do that snail shell too and see how that comes along. So that was autumn still life. And I'm when I share, so I always share everything in the description down below. I'll share the links to everything, and the links that I'm sharing for all the owl forest patterns will take you to their page on their website that has everything for that pattern. It's like their search page. So like, for example, for nature morte, for still life, I'm sharing the link that takes you to the still life search page. So when you click on it, it will show you the digital pattern, the print pattern, the threads, and the fabric, and the needle minder. Like everything, all the bits that go with the one pattern, just in case you're curious about that. Okay, I have 2 more new starts, and then we're going to talk about plans. So thanks for sticking with me if you're still here. I started yet another ink circles pattern, and it looks like this. I'm loving this one, and I know you've seen this one. I've been posting this on my Instagram page, so I know you've been liking it too. This is Turkish. I have the picture of this one. Turkish Delight by Ink Circles. Let me hold it up closer so you can see. It's really, really beautiful. It uses 2 colors of, I think, Gloriana. I don't remember what the called for threads are on it, but I am using, because I'm stitching from my stash, I am using that same blue, PR075, did I say? Yeah, PR075. That's in that blue velvet by Ink Circles. And then I'm also using my Color and Cotton Teal that I just throw into everything. And I think it looks great. It actually reminds me, there's a piece of Persian art that I really love looking at for inspiration that has these it has yellows mixed in too, but it has these 2 colors mixed in. I love the contrast of it. And this fabric, it's an 18 count Aida. It's by Fiberlicious, and it's called Rustic Fall. And I think it's going to fit well on this. It's a 13 by 17 piece. So what I want to do is try to get across the top and make sure I mean, we are basically, where are we at? This is a third. We're at a third of it here. This is 1/3 of the pattern. So I think for once I will actually have enough fabric to stitch the whole thing. This is really, really enjoyable stitch. It's another easy one where I don't feel like I have to highlight what I'm stitching. I can follow it pretty easily. There are lots of gaps in it, so it works up pretty quickly. And I'm just loving it. And it's like a nice contrast on this fabric, right? You know what I was going for the inspiration on this? There is a Rosewood Manor Turkish pattern. I don't know if it's called Turkish Delight or something else, but that one is stitched on a Picture This Plus Rubius, which is a bright pinky red fabric, super bright. And it's got these same colors. It's got like teals and blues and dark blue too. It looked really beautiful. So I knew I wanted to stitch this on something with like a reddish tone, but this is the closest one I had. I'm supposed to have some pink fabrics coming in that I ordered for Expo, but those, I think they're having trouble stocking those because it's been a while and I haven't received. Like I know one from Abby, Top Knot, coming, and then I have a couple of Mountain Air ones that are coming from Stitches and Things in Michigan, and they said they haven't even like received their Mountain Air fabrics yet. So I will eventually have more pinks in my stash, but this is the closest like reddish pink that I had, so I just went with it. I'm trying to use up my stash, so that's how that's going to look. So it's okay. I think the colors look pretty good on there. So that again was Ink Circles, Turkish Delight. I have one more to go, and actually, to show you my last one, I'm going to actually kind of transition to talking about plans. And for plans, I wanted to talk a little bit about you know me, I do some socially conscious stitching, craftivism, and I think some of you might be interested in that too. And if you're not, I don't know what to tell you. You could skip to the end or something. And if you just want to listen anyway, that'd be cool. But so when we moved to the house this month, when we closed on the house before we moved and we came to see it after closing, there was a welcome packet from our village left for us. And in that, it had a calendar. And I just loved, I know this is going to sound kind of like silly, but I loved flipping through the calendar because there were so many culturally relevant holidays listed on it. And I like June, they definitely had Pride Month listed, and they have the anniversary of the legalization of same-sex marriage in the U.S. that's listed on the calendar. Juneteenth is on there too. I just went through and I'll read you a few more. I won't read through the whole calendar, but I was just so impressed. There's a Cesar Chavez Day. Cesar Chavez, who worked for farm workers' rights. International Women's Day is on there. There's like all sorts of religious, like there's a Baha'i date on here. There's a really interesting, I haven't looked into it yet, but there's a Wounded Knee Day. Wounded Knee attack on the Native American reservation, right? A Wounded Knee. So there's just some interesting, very culturally relevant holidays. And then the more I look, we live in Forest Park, Illinois. And the more I looked into it, the reason why, not a big reason, but one reason why we chose this neighborhood was because when we pulled up to tour the house for the first time, there were like lots of our neighbors have signs up that are, Black Lives Matter signs, or like hate has no home here. In this house, we believe, kindness is everything. We know, it's like the pledge that Michelle G, right? Bendy Stitchy says in all her videos. So it just felt like a very inclusive neighborhood, and a neighborhood where people care about each other. And then when looking at that calendar, I thought, oh, this is so great. Like they're embracing all these, all kinds of groups and being inclusive of everyone. And I also read that in 2019, before the pandemic, they had their first Pride Parade here in our little community. Chicago, we're right next to Chicago, and they have an enormous Pride Parade. And actually we just found out they postponed Pride Parade in Chicago to October, which is Pride History Month. Just to I think they're kind of waiting to see over the summer how stuff goes with the pandemic before they get a big crowd of people together. So anyway, with all of this, I just thought I'd like to stitch something for Pride and also donate to something Pride related. I have my Fierté shirt on today too. So I have a few ideas for what I want to do, but I'm kind of limited in what I myself will do because I only have certain things in my stash, and some of this requires buying items that I'm not ready to do yet. But I can show you one. I started, so I had this in my stash, ink circles. This is Metamorphosis, which is already kind of a rainbow themed pattern, but I'm embracing the Pride flag a little bit more. So I'm going to stitch each color in the colors of the Pride flag in order. And it has 7 motifs. So I'm going to do the first 6 will be in each one in a color of the Pride flag. And then the final one, I will stitch as a flag. So I will have like the top will be red and then orange, and then I'll do layers of it. And I want to couple that with donations, because I always feel like my take on it is it's great for us to stitch what we believe, because that increases visibility and that makes people talk. And then we can become a more inclusive society that way, right? If we just share our thoughts about being inclusive, that's a big part of it. Making people know how we feel about it and then trying to talk to people about how they feel about it. But also I feel like donations are really important because like if we're talking about Pride, right? Let's say I have a friend or a student who is questioning their gender and they're not sure who to talk to. There are people at school, there are agencies, there are organizations that they can go to, like if they're afraid to talk to their family about it, right? If they're not sure how to broach the subject, there are lots of resources that they can go to who are doing the hard work of providing the social emotional support or financial support or providing items for the person, or if it's doctors, providing the medical support needed for like a trans person, for example. So there are people who are actually doing the work of supporting and helping, helping people be who they are meant to be. And there are us who are allies who want to show that we care about it too. So I feel like we need to support the people who are doing the real work. Does that make sense? So I have some options. I want to, I'm holding it upside down. I want to stitch and I want to donate too. So these are my ideas for donations. I think it's most likely going to be a group called Brave Space Alliance. They're in Chicago, and they're an all-Black support group for the LGBTQ+, the queer community in Chicago. I like that they're all Black because I think they'll provide services like in Black communities in Chicago that are traditionally underserved by others. So like, for example, the other agency I was going to donate to, I still might, I'm not sure, is an enormous agency. It's a children's hospital here called Lurie Children's Hospital. They're really big and they're well known here. Like I have a colleague at work whose little baby had to have a heart transplant. And so they are specialists in it. Little children are really well cared for, but they also have a gender development program. So if, a teen or a young adult is questioning their gender and they're not, and their family wants to support them, but they don't know how, they don't know like what the next steps are or how to proceed, how to talk about it. They have staff who are experienced in transitioning or just gender identity, who they can talk to so that this person can be who they're meant to be and who they want to be. And they had the gender development program at Lurie. They had actually some of their staff come out and do a training for our faculty at school on the language of gender identity. And it was an awesome, like one of the best sessions as a teacher that I've ever attended. It was so useful. And I felt so grateful that our school was actually talking about this too. So I thought they would be a great program to fund, but I'm waiting on information from them because I want to know a couple things. I want to know what's the diversity of their clientele. Like, are they serving mostly white families, or do they feel like they reach out to more diverse populations? And then also I wanted to know, because they're a hospital, I wanted to know if they serve people who do not have insurance. Or do they turn people away, or what's going on with that? So they are putting some information together for me. So that's where I'm not sure yet who I want to support with this. That's why I'm leaning towards Brave Space Alliance, because they are a group that would serve a more diverse community in terms of, queer supporting, not just being allies, but providing support to our queer community in Chicago. So that's where I'm at with that. I have another, I don't have anything to show you for this next bit, but I have other ideas. Okay. Stitching Pride. I think you guys see Jesse's video, Jesse, who's mislaid pages. Not the most recent, the most recent one too, but also the last one, they did a lot of talk about trans, and pride stitching. And, Michelle G is doing Transtastic Sal, so you can stitch that. A couple other ideas if you want to stitch for pride, but also if you can give. Frida, if you've been waiting to stitch anything on Frida, like Barbara Anna, Frida, Dreaming Frida Kahlo is considered an LGBTQ advocate because she was very open. She was bi and she was very open about her sexuality, especially in a time and in a community where people didn't talk about women's sexuality or gender. So stitching anything Frida would be great for pride. And then I have plans down the road. I'm going to take a Barbara Anna pattern. It's for Lemon Cat, which I've been looking at for a while, and I want to tweak it to be a tribute to Samantha Flores. And Samantha Flores is a trans activist in Mexico City. And I'm not going to say very much about all this right now because I don't have the pattern and I can't get the pattern because I'm trying not to buy the patterns. So this may be a reason for me. I'm thinking I might in June break my 100 days and maybe try to go to like 60 days or something instead, because I really want to stitch a couple more pride related patterns this month. And I won't be able to do that without picking up patterns. So anyway, if I start that one this month, I will tell you about it at the end of the month when I make my next video. So, I would encourage you to just, this month I'm going to read more about pride. I'm going to read about LGBTQ history. PBS here, Public Broadcasting System. It's like the public television station. They've got documentaries and programs on LGBTQ plus history. So it's going to be a month of getting educated. And of course, just like everything else, it's not just this month, right? We have to keep it going, and support however we can, and, keep stitching our allyship too, not just during the month, but ongoing. Oh, you can also stitch Quakers if you like Quaker samplers like I do. And so that led me down a research hole because I was wondering, what do Quakers think about gender identity? They seem to be pretty liberal and inclusive with a lot of other things. So I will link an article below from the Human Rights Council. They did a really nice write-up actually on contemporary Quaker associations. There are several associations across the U.S. for Quakers, and they've put out statements. Actually, let me see if I have it up because I want to read the statement to you. Sorry, everybody, it's going to take a sec. The short answer is yes, they are open and inclusive to the queer community, which is great because I wanted to recommend stitching, like, wouldn't it be cool to stitch a Quaker with all rainbow motifs? That would be kind of cool, but I want to make sure that the actual group is supportive of it too. So I'll share this link below. This is a statement that the Friends General Conference, which is it says it's one of the 3 major national associations for Quaker Friends meetings and churches in the U.S. They issued a statement in fall 2004, and this is their statement. Our experience has been that our gatherings and central committee work have been immeasurably enriched over the years by the full participation and spirit-guided leadership of gay, lesbian, bisexual, transgender, and queer friends. We will never go back to silencing those voices or suppressing those gifts. So this write-up by the Human Rights Council, it also says that Quakers have been involved with advocacy for LGBTQ rights since the 1960s. So, interesting to think about. And it kind of opens up also, if we're stitching our allyship, maybe we could dip our toes into stitching Quakers, some rainbow Quakers too. Okay, so I'm curious to know if anyone else is stitching anything for Pride, if you have any cool ideas. Oh, it was Woolen Wren on Instagram. I think it's Emily. she gave a really cool idea. If you wanted to also stitch metamorphosis, she suggested doing each motif in a different pride flag. So like pride, lesbian, trans, you make each one in the different motifs. That's kind of a cool idea too. And then you have it's like diversity within the queer community. So and I feel like there's so mmany directions. This is going to be a lot like Stitch Asia. Like when, Abby started Stitch Asia, at first you're like, oh, what could I possibly stitch for this? And then after you get going, like you see Stitch Asia patterns everywhere. I feel like that you could do that with Pride too. You can make so many different patterns. You could come up with so many ideas for that. Wouldn't it be cool to stitch a rainbow Quaker and then do research on, like queer activists in history and stitch their initials or their names into it? That'd be cool too. Okay. I also want to talk about continuing this kind of craftivism kick, for plans. I want to talk about Palestine too. I have absolutely nothing to show you. Oh no, I do have a little something I can show you. Threads, if I can find them. Okay, so we know what's been going on in Palestine, and I feel kind of personally motivated to look into this. First of all, it's a human rights issue, so if you care about human beings, you look into this. And if you're uninformed like me, I don't know much about the Israeli-Palestine conflict, so I definitely have to look into it. But it's even more meaningful to me because I have a very dear colleague at work who's Palestinian American. And I have students who are of Palestinian origin, and they care deeply about what's going on there. So I feel like I owe it to them, too, to just be better informed so that I can be a better emotional support to them, too. So I am very new. I do not know much about the Israeli-Palestine conflict. I just know I want to stitch support of it. So I'm recommending, I'll link below a video to a series called Crash Course History on YouTube. And they have a pretty decent video on the history of the Israeli-Palestine conflict. So check that out. And I'm curious if anyone wants to check that out and let me know what you think. And then, so I feel like learning about the conflict will involve just hearing stories, hearing about people's experiences. So I'm on a search to kind of hear stories about that, about what's going on there. And I'm going to plug something. She doesn't know I'm doing this, but this is my colleague who I mentioned at work, who's such a special person. Her name is Naveen Shabna. She's an English teacher at school and also like just an extraordinary individual. She's doing research on equity. She's written a book. This is a fiction book. It's called Secrets Under the Olive Tree, and I'll link it below. It's available on Bookshop. It's on back order, I think, at bookshop.org. But it's such a moving story. If you're looking just about stories about the Palestinian American experience, this is a really good one. It's about a girl who's Palestinian American and just what she, things going on in her life, and her connection to the homeland too. Very compelling, really moving read. So definitely pick this one up if you can. And you'd be supporting a high school teacher too, which is awesome. And you'd be supporting a Palestinian American too. And I'm drawn to story. I read a lot of fiction, and I'm drawn to stories that are about like different cultures mixed with American culture, because that's my story too. Like I was born in the US, but my parents were born in India. So we have I live a very American life, but heavily influenced by Indian culture. So I love hearing stories about like the mix or the clash of cultures. And that's totally what this is. So if you're looking to just expand your experience of what it's like to be Palestinian American, that's a great story to read. Okay. I have more to share. So if we want to think about Palestine and stitching, I just Googled Palestinian embroidery. And there is a style of Palestinian embroidery called tatriz. It looks like tatriz, T-A-T-R-E-E-Z. Tatriz is what people are saying. Tatriz, I think, is how they're pronouncing it. And a fiber artist, there are a couple of really great fiber artists who specialize in this today, like the modern kind of versions of it. The first one is Wafa Gnayem. And Wafa is a fiber artist and a teacher of fiber arts, and her website is called Tatriz and Tea, and she's given an extraordinary talk. She's a very compelling speaker. She's great to listen to. So like if you're like me and you like to watch long floss tubes, like watch this talk that I'm linking below. She gave a talk to a Palestinian American association all about Palestinian embroidery, this Tatriz embroidery. And it's fascinating. Like she has a lot to say about the motifs. I guess like one thing that's unique about it is that it's stitched in a way where the back often, it's cross stitch, first of all. It is cross stitch, but it's stitched in a way that where the front motif and the back side of it resemble each other very closely. Like you could, she in that talk that she gives, she basically flips up a part of her dress and you can see that the motif, it doesn't look like a messy disaster like mine. It looks very similar to the front, to the actual motifs. And I don't know in terms of like this, how to actually do that kind of stitching. I don't know how it compares to how we stitch. Like I stitch full X's. I know it like I'm super thread waster when I do that, but that's just how I do it. I like to complete X's. I know some people like stitch one end and then stitch back. So I haven't looked too much into how to actually stitch Tatriz cross stitch. But she does talk about that in her video a little bit. She goes into like how regional like motifs changed from region to region. It's super fascinating, that video. And her website is awesome because she teaches classes on Tatriz cross stitch. You got to see her patterns on that Tatriz and T. It's classes where she'll show you the finished, you can see a picture of the finished pattern and then decide to take that class to stitch that project. And, she's got a couple that are real beautiful. There's like a garden one that's beautiful. There's a map of Palestine with Tatriz motifs all inside. I would love to. Once I'm spending again, I'm there. I want to sign up to do that. I challenge you to just Google Tatriz. Just Google Tatriz. There are unbelievably beautiful motifs on there. It'd be cool to take a class with Wafa just because then you'd be supporting. She's Palestinian American. She's out of New York. So it'd be cool to support a Palestinian fiber artist. There's another one I want to recommend too, and I'll link all of their stuff below. Jordan Nasser is also a Palestinian American fiber artist, also based in New York. And I'm going to recommend him because he's got a little demo video on how to stitch Tatriz, but also he's got a free pattern available. So I think I'm going to stitch his free pattern, and I'm going to try to use... Well, I'm not going to find it now, am I? I don't have it to show you, but you know my PR 068 from my henna mandala? I think I'm going to use that because, so the Palestinian flag is red, black, and green motifs on a white. So with that PR 068, I've got red and black, and then I've also got a deep, deep green DMC somewhere. I don't know where I put all this stuff. But I think I'm gonna stitch Jordan Nasser's free pattern he's got, and then donate too. So once again, like we can stitch to increase visibility and to start the conversation, but I really feel like we have to donate to, if it's in your means to do it, to donate to. I'm gonna donate to. I think it's going to be to Humanity Calling is the organization. And I found out about that one because I've been following Hawari Bazaar Yarn, which is the yarn. If you've been watching Michelle G, Bendy Stitchy, she ordered a Ramadan box of yarn, like a day-to-day box of yarn from them. And they recently, it's Hawari Bazaar. I'll link it. It's all linked below. But they have just, I don't know if it's finished or if it's still going, but they created a hand-dyed yarn in the Palestinian flag colors. And there are proceeds of that are going to this Humanity Calling, which is actually doing on-the-ground work, helping I think it's like during the recent bombings, one of the reports I read that was like 52,000 people who are displaced after their homes were bombed and things like that. So they're actually on the ground, like getting food to people, helping them find places to live and all that kind of stuff. So I think I'm going to go with them only because Hawari Bazaar recommended them. And I'm not too familiar with other agencies that are doing work. So they're called Humanity Calling, and I'll link them below as well. So I think when I stitch Jordan's free pattern, I will also donate a little something to them. Donations are kind of funny to think about because you have to do with what's feasible for you, right? So like for us, we can spare, like I can spare $20 a week. That $20 would be like us eating out. So like, okay, for that week, we're not going to have our meal out. We'll just have an extra meal at home. You know what I mean? Or like, we'll have to cobble together something from our pantry instead of eating out. That's what a donation is for me. But I know that's not the same for everybody. So you kind of have to figure out what's feasible for you. Okay. We are almost at the end, everybody. This is probably like my longest video. Cliffside Stitches on Etsy. They also have 2 Palestinian patterns, 2 samplers. I was just recommending Wafa and Jordan Nasser just because they're Palestinian American. So why not support someone who's familiar with the culture? But if you like Cliffside Stitches and you want to use their patterns, you could do that. Oh, and there is another Palestinian stitcher on Etsy who actually has a really beautiful pattern. Embroidery by Heba is another actual Palestinian fiber artist who sells patterns. They've got a pattern called Traditional Palestinian Tatriz. It's a little pattern too. Jordan's free pattern is also little, and then Heba's pattern is little too. So if you're looking to stitch and donate, those would be some good options, Palestinian related options. So I think we're at the end, everybody. Thank you so much for sticking around when I'm just like going on and on about this stuff. I stitched a lot this month though, so I had tons to say about everything. Plans for June. I'm going to get my floss organized because I have basically like a big Ziploc bag where I've been throwing all my DMC floss. And then I also have skeins of floss that are in all these kitted projects. So they're like, my DMC is all over the place. So another reason why I might break my 100 days haul is because I want to get some more floss boxes. And I'm going to do a thing. I just put them on like the good old cardboard bobbins and I label the number. But what I'm going to do, if I really want to get organized, I'm going to go through all of my kitted projects and look at the full skeins that I have in there. So let's say I have a DMC 312 in a project. I'm going to write 312 on it, but I'm going to write the name of the project that it's kitted up with, and I'm going to put that in my floss box. So I'm going to have a master set of my flosses that are not being used, but then it's kind of like I'm checking them out of my floss box, and I'm going to put a card in as a placeholder to say where it is. I think that's what I'm going to do for my master organization. So that's a plan for June. I want to just start like bobbinating, putting things on bobbins, looking through my old kits, like creating placeholder cards, get all that organized. I organized my fabric. I organized it and folded it up by count. So I have that kind of set up. And then I want to maybe start that lemon cat and tell you more about Samantha Flores and donate to her organization for Pride. Maybe. We'll see if I want to shop or not. And then I just want to finish. I want to finish more items because I'm not on a roll, but I do feel like I'm close on a couple of things. Maybe Dreaming Girl, definitely Blue Velvet, and maybe some others too. I want to try to stitch my Metamorphosis. I want to try to finish that this month too. I'm going to do a fundraiser on my personal Facebook page. I don't know about you all, but not many people in my personal circle know about Flosstube just because it's not very interesting. If you're not a stitcher, you know how it is. It's not very interesting. Like I was trying to tell a colleague yesterday, we were talking about like a really good friend of mine at work. We were talking about summer plans and I said, oh, I can't wait to go home because I have so many cross stitch videos to watch. And they don't know that I do Flosstube or anything. They barely know that I cross stitch. And my colleague, who's a really good friend, she's like, oh my gosh, that sounds so boring. And I said, it is boring for you. If you don't cross stitch, it probably is very boring. But we all love it, right? So I don't tell people. My partner knows that I do Flosstube, and I have one really good friend who knows that I do Flosstube. But other than that, I keep it to you. Basically, you're my community, and I keep it to you. But I think I am just going to create a fundraiser for Brave Space Alliance on my Facebook page and see if any of my I'm not going to mention Flosstube, but I think I will put it up as like a stitching challenge. Like I'll say, I'm trying to stitch this to increase visibility. And I want to create this fundraiser to go along with it. will you guys pledge something, like, to my personal contacts, will you pledge something and then kind of push me to finish this? That way I can post a finished one on my Facebook page, which I don't go to Facebook that much anymore. So I also kind of feel bad because now I like never post anything on Facebook and then I'm going to ask for money, but we'll just see how that goes. But yeah, so that's everything. Thank you so much once again for listening. Thank you. Oh, thank you so much for your comments. Last month I had asked about tips for finishing and also tips for like getting into full coverage. So I've been reading a lot and watching a lot about full coverage. It's been super helpful. So thank you so much for your suggestions on that. And thanks for sticking around. Thanks for listening. Sorry about that, you all. Thanks for listening. Thanks for tuning in. I've been I will be better on Instagram, and I've been enjoying everything that you've been posting on Instagram too. So hope everybody has a wonderful June stitching, and I'm going to check back in with you in another month. Happy stitching, everybody. Have a good day.